The Galactic Naval Academy hummed with the quiet energy of 1,000 different species moving through its crystalline halls. Zero gravity made the floating pathways seem alive. Alien cadets drifting past in shimmering uniforms that reflected the starlight from the observation domes. Among them, the humans stood out smaller, softer, their simple grey jumpsuits, a stark contrast to the iridescent armor of their peers. Captain Ryan Blake adjusted his magnetic boots as he walked, the only human instructor in the tactical warfare wing. His footsteps echoed too loudly in the hall, drawing glances from passing cadets. A pair of Superior officers sneered as they floated by, their chitinous plates clicking in amusement. Blake ignored them. Head spent the last 6 months enduring the Whisper's soft skins, fragile, primitive. The simulation chamber loomed ahead, its arched entrance pulsing with holographic warnings. Inside, Cadet Lissa Cho was already waiting, her dark hair tied back in a tight bun, her posture rigid. She was the only human in her class, and it showed in the way the other cadets kept their distance, clustering in their own species. "Groups, Captain on deck," she called, snapping a salute. The other cadets barely reacted, a few turning their eye stalks or antennae in mild curiosity. Blake returned the salute. "At ease, cadet." Commander Vexler, the Academy's senior tactical instructor, glided into the room on his repulsor disc. His 4 arms folded across his chest. His exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights, the deep violet of high rank among the Zephyrians. "Ah, Captain Blake," Vexler said, his voice dripping with condescension. "How quaint of you to join us. I trust your species' slower reflexes didn't delay you." A ripple of laughter spread through the alien cadets. Blake kept his face neutral. "Just ensuring my cadets are prepared." Commander Vexler's mandibles twitched in what passed for a smirk. "Then let us begin today's simulation. Fleet engagement in the Deneb system. Standard rules apply. No quarter, no mercy." The holographic projectors fled to life, wrapping the chamber in a starfield. Human and Zephyrian ships materialized. The blocky, angular shapes of Earth's destroyers dwarfed by the sleek, organic curves of the Federation's plasma. Shielded cruisers. Lissa's fingers flew over her console, inputting commands. "Sir, I've got the Defiance prepped. Railguns loaded. Point. Defense online." Blake nodded. "Good, stick to the plan. Hit them fast, hit them hard." Vexler's voice crackled over the comms. "Begin." The simulation erupted into chaos. The Zephyrian fleet moved like a single organism, their plasma cannons lancing out in perfect synchronization. Human ships shuddered under the barrage, their unshielded hulls buckling. "Evasive maneuvers?" Blake barked. Lissa's hands were a blur. "Aye, sir," rolling port. A direct hit rocked the Defiance. The holographic deck shuddered, alarms blaring. "Shields at oh right," Lissa muttered. "We don't have shields." Blake gritted his teeth. "Return fire. Target their lead cruiser." The Defiance's railguns roared, tungsten slugs screaming across the void. They struck the Zephyrian vessel and splashed harmlessly against its shimmering energy shield. Vexler's laughter filled the comms. "Captain Blake, really kinetic weapons? How archaic." Another volley of plasma fire tore through the human fleet. One by one, their ships flickered out of existence in the simulation. Blake's jaw tightened. "Fall back to asteroid cover, regroup." Lissa's voice was tight. "Sir, we're down to 3 ships." The Zephyrian fleet advanced, their shields glowing like invincible bubbles. Vexler's voice dripped with mock pity. "A valiant effort, humans. But your reliance on steel and gunpowder is adorable. The Federation's plasma shields render your pitiful fleets obsolete." The simulation ended with a final brutal strike. The Defiance exploded into pixels. Silence filled the chamber. Blake exhaled slowly, then turned to face his cadets. Lissa's knuckles were white where she gripped the console. Vexler floated closer, his tone smug. "Any lessons learned today, Captain?" Blake met his gaze. 1. Commander, never underestimate humanity. Vexler's mandibles clicked in amusement. Oh, and why is that? Blake smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Because we adapt. The Superior scoffed, turning to address the class. Take note, cadets. This is why humans will never be more than a footnote in galactic warfare. Their technology is centuries behind. Their tactics, childish, their ships. He gestured to the wrecked holograms, tin cans. Lissa's voice cut through the murmurs. With all due respect, Commander, you're wrong. Every eye stalk in the room swiveled toward her. Vexler tilted his head. Oh, enlighten us, cadet. Lissa stood straighter. You rely on shields. We rely on ingenuity. You call us primitive, but we've survived worse than you can imagine. And we learn. Vexler's laughter broke it. Adorable. Tell me, cadet, what will your ingenuity do when the Federation's fleets come for your homeworld? Blake stepped forward. You'll find out soon enough, Commander. The dismissal chime echoed through the academy. Cadets began filing out, whispering among themselves. Lissa lingered, her expression unreadable. Blake clapped a hand on her shoulder. You did good today, she shook her head. We lost, sir. Yeah, Blake said, watching Vexler glide away. But not for long. Outside the chamber, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Earth's shipyards were working, and humanity never forgot a slight. The Cygnus system was supposed to be safe, neutral space, protected by the Galactic Federation's peacekeeping fleet. Lieutenant Jake Morrison gripped the armrests of his command chair as the USN Atlantica shuddered under another plasma volley. The bridge lights flickered red, casting long shadows across the sweating faces of his crew. Outside the viewport, the sleek, predatory shapes of pirate raiders darted between the lumbering Federation cruisers that weren't firing back. Status report, Morrison barked. Shields at 5%, sir. Ensign Rivera's voice cracked. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Engineering reports. The Atlantica lurched violently as a torpedo slammed into its starboard side. Alarms wailed. Someone screamed. Morrison's comms officer, Lieutenant Park, spun in her seat. Sir, Admiral Krellis is hailing us. Put him through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the Vorak Admiral's scaled face. His slit, pupilled eyes regarded Morrison with cold detachment. Behind him, the bridge of the Federation flagship Eternal Dawn hummed with calm efficiency. No alarms, no panic. Lieutenant, Krellis said, his voice a dry rasp. You are outmatched. Surrender your vessel. Morrison's knuckles whitened. Admiral, we were ambushed under your protection. Where the hell is your fleet? A pause. Then, almost imperceptibly, Krellis's lips curled, rearranging defensive positions. On the tactical display, Morrison watched in disbelief as the Federation ships, 12 pristine battlecruisers, with enough firepower to vaporize the pirate fleet in seconds, pulled back, formed a perimeter. Did nothing. You're leaving us. Morrison's voice dropped to a whisper. Krellis tilted his head. The Atlantica is expendable, a necessary sacrifice to draw out these criminals. The transmission cut out. For a heartbeat, the bridge was silent. Then the first officer, Commander Hale, slammed his fist into the console. Those bastards. Morrison stared at the tactical screen. The pirate ships, jagged patchwork vessels held together by rust and spite, were closing in. The Atlantica was alone. Outgunned, sir, Park shouted. Incoming transmission. It is the pirates. The view screen filled with the grinning face of a scarred Kilrathi warlord, his fur matted with battle trophies. Human ship, he purred. You die now. Morrison didn't hesitate. Helm, emergency thrust. Bring us about. Weapons, target their lead ship's engines. The Atlantica groaned as it pivoted, its aging thrusters burning at 5%. On the view screen, the pirate flagship loomed closer, its plasma cannons glowing crimson. Sir, they're locking. Fire. The Atlantica's railguns thundered, depleted uranium rounds streaked across the void. They struck the pirate ship's engines in a series of blinding flashes. The vessel spun wildly, its hull rupturing in a cascade of explosions. The bridge crew cheered, but the celebration died as 3 more pirate ships surged forward. "We can't take another hit," Hale muttered. Morrison's mind raced. The Federation had abandoned them. Their shields were failing, their weapons were overheating. Then he saw it. "Helm," Morrison said slowly. "Set course for the asteroid field. Maximum burn." Hale blinked. "Sir, that is suicide. Our nav systems can't do it." The Atlantica dove toward the dense field of tumbling rock. Pirate ships followed, their commanders too bloodthirsty to realize the trap. Inside the field, navigation was impossible. Sensors scrambled. Collision alerts screamed as the Atlantica weaved between mountain-sized boulders. Behind them, the first pirate ship clipped an asteroid and detonated. Then another. Morrison watched the carnage on the tactical display. His hands were steady. Finally, the Atlantica emerged from the far side of the field. Of the 8 pirate ships that had pursued them, only 3 remained. "Sir," Park said quietly, "the Federation fleet is moving. They're engaging the survivors." On the view screen, the Eternal Dawn and its escort swept in, their plasma lances cutting the remaining pirates apart with surgical precision. A new transmission, Krellis again. "Lieutenant Morrison, your tenacity is noted. The Federation will take custody of the prisoners." Morrison leaned forward. "You left us to die." Krellis's expression didn't change. "Your losses are regrettable, but expendable." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. The Atlantica was a wreck. Half the crew was dead or wounded, and the Federation hadn't even bothered to lie. Morrison stood. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Remember this," he said to his crew. "Remember what they called us." He turned to the view screen, where the Eternal Dawn glided away, pristine and untouched. "Expendable," he repeated. The word hung in the air like a promise. Somewhere in the ship's battered hull, a support beam groaned. The sound was almost human, almost like laughter. The wreckage of the Atlantica spun slowly in the dry dock, its hull pockmarked with plasma burns and gaping holes where Vorak energy lances had punched clean through. Engineer Sergeant Amir Hassan ran a gloved hand along the jagged edges of the breach, his fingers tracing the outline of what had once been the ship's primary reactor housing. The metal was still warm. 300 dead, he muttered to himself. And for what? Around him the Mars orbital shipyards buzzed with activity. Welding torches hissed, cranes groaned under the weight of salvaged armor plating, and the constant chatter of repair crews filled the air. This wasn't a dockyard. It was a graveyard. Dozens of human ships, survivors of Cygnus Fae, lay gutted and broken, their crews either dead or reassigned. The Federation had called them acceptable losses. A voice crackled over his comm. "Sergeant Hassan, you're needed in Bayfay." He didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the Atlantica's shattered bridge, where Lieutenant Morrison had somehow kept the ship alive long enough to limp home. The man had refused medical treatment until every last one of his wounded crew had been evacuated. "On my way," Hassan finally replied. Bayfay was different from the rest of the shipyard. It was isolated, shielded behind layers of security checkpoints and armed Marines. The moment Hassan stepped inside, the air changed, charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. In the center of the bay, surrounded by a team of engineers in grease, stained jumpsuits, stood Dr. Ilara Voss. The physicist was hunched over a massive cylindrical device, her fingers flying across a holographic interface. She didn't look up as Hassan approached. "You're late." "Had to pay my respects," Hassan said flatly. Voss finally glanced at him, her sharp green eyes flickering with something unreadable. "Then you'll understand why we can't let this happen again." She stepped aside, revealing the full scope of the device. It was a railgun, but unlike anything Hassan had ever seen. The barrel was twice the length of a standard model, reinforced with hexagonal plating that pulsed faintly with blue energy at its base. A series of capacitors hummed ominously. Hassan whistled. "Project Gungnir." Voss nodded. The Federation thinks our kinetics are obsolete, that their plasma shields make us irrelevant. She tapped a command into her datapad, and a hologram flickered to life for Vorak Dreadnought, its energy shields shimmering like a second skin. But they're wrong. The hologram zoomed in, revealing the shield's surface in microscopic detail. At first it looked solid. Then Hassan saw it, a rhythmic pulse, almost imperceptible, like a heartbeat. Shields oscillate, Voss explained. They have to, or the containment field would collapse under its own energy. Every 12.3 microseconds to raise a weakness. She smirked. Hit them at exactly the right moment, and their impenetrable defense shatters. Hassan's pulse quickened. You're saying we can punch through, not just punch through. Voss' grin turned predatory, rip them apart. She gestured to a nearby console, where a live feed displayed a Vorak cruiser, captured during a skirmish near Jupiter, floating in a test chamber. Its shields were active, glowing a faint violet. Watch. Voss entered the firing sequence. The railgun charged, its capacitors whining as energy built to a crescendo. Then, crack. The sound was deafening, even through the base soundproofing. The projectile, a tungsten slug the size of a ground car, blurred across the chamber and struck the cruiser's shield's dead center. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the shield fractured, like glass under a hammer. The energy field splintered into 1,000 jagged shards before detonating outward. The projectile continued unimpeded, tearing through the cruiser's hull and erupting out the other side in a shower of molten metal. Silence. Hassan's hands shook. How many ships can we retrofit with this? Not enough, Voss admitted. But we don't need to. We just need one. She pulled up another schematic, a modified Defiant class cruiser, its spinal mount replaced with Gungnir's massive barrel. Captain Blake's ship is already being prepped. If this works, the Federation won't know what hit them. Hassan finished. Voss' expression darkened. They left us to die, Amir. They called us expendable. She placed a hand on the railgun's casing, her voice dropping to a whisper. Let's show them how wrong they were. Outside, the distant glow of Saturn's rings cast long shadows across the shipyard. Somewhere out there, the Vorak fleet was regrouping, planning their next move. They had no idea what was coming. The Defiance hung in the void like a battered old knife among jeweled daggers. Captain Ryan Blake watched the tactical display with narrowed eyes. 12 Vorak warships formed a glittering crescent ahead, their plasma shields pulsing in rhythmic waves. The alien vessels gleamed like polished obsidian, their smooth curves a stark contrast to the Defiance's angular, patchwork hull. Shields at maximum oscillation, Lieutenant Chen reported from the sensor station. Pattern matches Dr. Voss's predictions, peaks every few seconds. Blake's fingers tightened around the armrests of his command chair. Gunnery lock all Gungnir arrays on the lead cruiser. Time our salvo for the trough. A chorus of acknowledgements echoed through the bridge. The new railgun turrets hummed as they charged, their magnetic coils glowing cherry red across the ship. Engineers like Amir Hassan had worked miracles, welding the massive weapons onto a frame never designed to handle them. On the view screen, Admiral Jorek's flagship loomed larger, its sleek silhouette radiating arrogance. A hailing frequency chimed. Human vessel. Jorek's voice crackled, thick with Vorak disdain. You trespass in sovereign space. Power down your primitive engines and prepare to be boarded. Blake leaned forward. Admiral, we're just passing through. Unless the Federation's definition of sovereign space includes neutral trade lanes now. A pause, then laughter, sharp, metallic. You amuse me, soft skin. Your kind still believes in rules. Tell me, did rules save your Atlantica at Cygnus? Faye. The bridge crew stiffened. Ensign Rivera's knuckles whitened around her console. Blake kept his voice ice, calm. No, but ingenuity did. Gungnir primed, shouted Chief Gunnery Officer Kowalski. -2 seconds to shield minimum. Jorak's image flickered as he turned to an off-screen subordinate. Scan their weapon signatures. What are they? Fire, Blake roared. The Defiance shuddered as 6 tungsten slugs screamed from their barrels at Feifei. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the lead Vorak cruiser's shields flared violet and shattered like glass. The railgun rounds punched clean through its hull, detonating deep in its reactor core. The ship loomed into a fireball, its elegant structure torn apart from within. Silence gripped the bridge, then chaos erupted on the Vorak comms. Shield failure. Repeat. Shield fail. Impossible. Their weapons. Jorak's face reappeared, his 4 eyes wide with something no Vorak admiral had ever shown humans before. Fear. What treachery is this? Blake allowed himself a grim smile. No treachery, just physics. He nodded to Kowalski. Reload, next target. The remaining Vorak ships scrambled, their formation breaking as they veered wildly. Their shields flickered erratically, no longer the confident pulse of invincibility, but the panicked strobe of prey realizing it is cornered. Second cruiser's oscillation mapped, Chen yelled. Peak in 3, hold fire, Blake ordered. He opened a fleet-wide channel. Admiral Jorak, you have 10 seconds to order your fleet to stand down, or we'll demonstrate what else these primitive weapons can do. Static hissed. Then Jorak's voice, quieter now. You bluff. 1 lucky shot doesn't. 5 seconds. The Vorak ship's thrusters flared as they adjusted positions, their weapons still trained on the Defiance. But the certainty was gone. Their movements were hesitant, their targeting solutions shaky. Gunnery, Blake said softly. Paint their flagship's bridge. Kowalski grinned. Aye, Captain, locked. Jorak's transmission cut off mid-sentence. The Vorak flagship's engines flared as it lurched backward, its sleek hull suddenly clumsy in retreat. The other ships followed, their perfect formation dissolving into a disordered scramble. Ensign Rivera let out a breath. They're running. Blake watched the tactical display as the Vorak fleet jumped to FTL 1 by 1. Their graceful retreat anything but dignified. The last thing to fade was Jorak's final, garbled transmission. This isn't over. Human. The bridge erupted in cheers. Kowalski pounded his console, laughing. Did you see their faces? Like we'd just kicked their gods in the teeth. Blake didn't join the celebration. He stared at the wreckage of the first cruiser, its molten debris drifting in the void. Chen, get me a full damage report, Hassan. Check the Gungnir coils for stress fractures. He turned to his XO. And alert Earth Command, the Vorak won't stay scared for long. As the crew sprang into action, Blake allowed himself one private thought, watching the stars through the blood-streaked view screen. Now they know. Now they all know. Somewhere in the dark, the Atlantica's ghosts were smiling. The holographic war table flickered in the dim light of the Galactic Council chambers. Ambassador Rand's chitinous fingers twitched as the footage played, Vorak cruisers exploding in perfect synchronization, their shimmering shields collapsing like shattered glass under the relentless barrage of human railgun fire. The air smelled of ozone and panic. This is an outrage. Rand's voice modulator screeched, his Zephyrian vocal cords vibrating with fury. The other delegates flinched. Humanity's weapons violate every convention of civilized warfare. Fleet, Commander Deltric's floating orbs pulsed crimson, his telepathic voice booming through the chamber. Their kinetics ignore our shields. This is not war. This is butchery. A human diplomat, Colonel Elias Carter, leaned back in his chair. His uniform was crisp, unadorned except for the silver eagle pinned to his lapel. Funny, he said, voice dripping with calm malice. You didn't care about civilized warfare when you left our ships to burn at Cygnus. The chamber erupted. A Ceralian delegate slammed its tentacles against the table, bioluminescent patterns flaring across its skin. You were warned. Your primitive technology was unfit for Federation engagements. Carter didn't blink, and yet here we are. He tapped a control on his wrist. The hologram shifted. showing Admiral Krellis' transmission from the day of the betrayal. Your losses are regrettable, but expendable. Silence. Rand's exoskeleton darkened. That was a tactical decision. The Vorak fleet abandoned us, Carter finished. Left 12,000 human crewmen to die. So forgive me if I don't weep for your violations. Deltrix's orbs swirled. You cannot win this. The Federation has 10,000 ships. You have, what, a dozen retrofitted relics? Carter smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. We have Gungnir, and we've been sharing the schematics. The temperature in the room dropped. A Vorak admiral, his carapace still scorched from the battle, hissed. You lie, no species would. Earth Command transmitted the specs to every independent colony this morning, Carter said. Free of charge, the Leuten miners. They've already built 3, the Belters, 6. He leaned forward. Turns out, railguns are cheap when you don't waste power on fancy shields. Rand's mandibles clicked rapidly. This is madness. You're arming pirates, rebels. We're arming anyone who's ever been called expendable by the Federation, Carter said. And there are a lot of us. The hologram flickered again, showing live feeds from a dozen systems. Human ships, yes, but also battered Ixian freighters and Krell scavenger vessels. Their jury-rigged railgun barrels glowing hot. Deltrix's orbs dimmed. You've started a wildfire. Carter stood. No, you did. When you decided some lives were worth less than others, he adjusted his cuffs. The human fleet will be at Sol's Gate in 6 hours. You can try to stop us, but ID suggests you bring more than shields. Rand's voice was barely audible. This means war. Carter paused at the door. It always was. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere beyond them, 12 human ships prepared to face an empire. And for the first time in galactic history, the empire was afraid. The Atlantica shuddered as another plasma volley scorched its armored flanks. Warning klaxons wailed through the corridors. The ship's AI calmly listing damage reports like a surgeon assessing a dying patient. Lieutenant Jake Morrison gripped the command chair's armrests, his knuckles white. On the main view screen, the Federation fleet advanced, 40 sleek warships, their energy shields shimmering like heat mirages over desert sand. At their center loomed Admiral Krellis' flagship, the Vorax Fang, its predatory prow glowing with charging plasma batteries. Shields at %, reported Ensign Rivera. Her voice tight, portside railgun array overheating. We've got maybe 3 shots left before the capacitors burn out. Morrison didn't flinch, targeting solution. Locked, said Chief Gunnery Officer Haddad. His fingers danced across the console. But sir, even with Gungnir, we can't penetrate their forward shielding at this angle. Not unless they're mid-oscillation. Morrison finished. He tapped the comm. All ships, this is Atlantica, actual form on my mark, we're going for the throat. Across the battered human fleet, railgun turrets swiveled. The 12 remaining ships, patched, together wrecks. Every one of them angled their prows toward the Vorax Fang. On the tactical display, the alien vessels adjusted formation, confident in their superior numbers. Krellis' sneering face appeared on screen, his chitinous faceplates twitching in amusement. Lieutenant Morrison, he hissed. How persistent. Your species always did have a talent for futile gestures. Morrison leaned forward. Funny, I was just thinking the same about yours. The Atlantica's engines roared. The ship lunged forward, its battered hull groaning under the strain. The Federation fleet responded instantly. Plasma fire streaked through the void, ripping into the human ships. The Dauntless exploded in a silent fireball. The Resolute spun away, its engines dead. Now, Morrison barked. Every remaining railgun fired at once. The synchronized volley struck the Vorax Fang's shields just as they cycled. The effect was instantaneous. The energy barrier flickered, then shattered like glass under a hammer. The railgun rounds punched clean through the dreadnought's armored hull. Atmosphere vented in geysers of frozen oxygen. Krellis' eyes widened. Impossible. Reinforced the Atlantica didn't give him time. Morrison slammed his fist onto the comm. All hands brace for impact. The human destroyer plowed into the Vorak's fangs-exposed bridge at full thrust. Metal screamed, alerts blared. The Atlantica's prow crumpled, then tore through the enemy flagship's command deck like a bullet through paper. Morrison clung to his chair as the ship bucked. The view screen showed only twisted wreckage and Krellis' stunned face, seconds before the feed cut to static. The bridge crew gasped. Rivera whispered, "Did we just—" "Not yet," Morrison growled. He switched to fleet-wide comms. The remaining Federation ships reeled, their formation in chaos. "This is Lieutenant Morrison of the United Earth Starship Atlantica. Your admiral is dead. Your shields are useless, and we've got 5 more railguns loaded." He paused. "You want to test that?" Silence then. One by one, the alien ships powered down their weapons. Morrison exhaled. His fingers trembled just for a second, before he keyed the final transmission. "Expendable," he smiled. "Try unstoppable." The Atlantica's dying systems flickered, but outside, against the black, Earth's battered fleet still flew. The Galactic Academy's simulation chamber hummed with energy, its curved walls reflecting the blue glow of holographic star maps. A year ago, this room had been filled with sneers and mocking laughter. Now the alien cadets stood in tense silence, their multi-jointed limbs twitching nervously as they watched the display. Cadet Lissa Cho, now Instructor Cho, stood at the center of the room, her human frame dwarfed by the towering Xaperian and Cerelian students. She tapped a command into the console, and the hologram shifted to show a fleet of blocky, angular human warships. Their railgun arrays gleamed under the simulated starlight. "Today's lesson," Lissa said, her voice calm but edged with steel, "is on adaptive warfare." She gestured to the hologram. "This is the Battle of Soul's Gate. 12 human ships against 40 Federation vessels. Odds you'd consider unfavorable." A Xaperian cadet, his exoskeleton flushed with unease, raised a clawed hand. But the Federation had superior shielding, advanced plasma weaponry. "How?" Lissa smirked. "Watch." The simulation played out in real time. The human ships didn't scatter or retreat. They charged, their railguns firing in perfect synchronization. The first volley struck a Vorak cruiser. Its shields flickered, then shattered like glass. The second volley tore through its hull. Gasps rippled through the room. A Cerelian cadet's floating orbs dilated in shock. They knew. Lissa nodded. "We knew." She paused the simulation, zooming in on the Atlantica, Lieutenant Morrison's ship. It was battered, its hull scorched, but its railguns still glowed with lethal intent. "You abandoned us, left us to die, called us expendable." Her fingers tightened around the console. "But you forgot one thing." She resumed the playback. The Atlantica's final moments played out, the suicidal ramming maneuver, the Vorak flagship's bridge exploding in a fireball. Morrison's last transmission crackled through the chamber. "Expendable. Try unstoppable." The room fell deathly quiet. Even the ever-chattering Vespidians had gone still, their mandibles clamped shut. Lissa shut off the simulation. The holograms faded, leaving only the Academy's soft, ambient lighting. She turned to face the cadets, her expression unreadable. The Federation spent centuries believing shields made you invincible, that technology alone decided wars. She crossed her arms. But war isn't about who has the shiniest toys. It's about who's willing to adapt. A young Xaperian, barely more than a hatchling, stepped forward. His carapace still soft with youth. "But your ships were weaker." Slower. "How did you win?" Lissa's lips curled into a grim smile. "Because we learned." She tapped another command, and the hologram shifted again. This time to Earth's ancient history. Stone fortifications, trenches, siege engines. While you were perfecting your shields, we were studying every way to break them. While you dismissed kinetics as primitive, we mastered them. Her voice hardened. You underestimated us because we didn't fight like you. That was your mistake. The Cerulean cadet's orbs dimmed. And now, Lyssa exhaled, her shoulders relaxing just slightly. Now, the Federation has a choice. Keep clinging to old doctrines, or adapt. She raised her chin, but make no mistake, humanity won't be underestimated again. She turned back to the console, pulling up a final image, an ancient Earth phrase etched in bold letters above a fleet of human warships. Civis pacem parabellum. The alien cadets stared at the words, their translators struggling with the dead language. Lyssa didn't bother explaining. She didn't need to. The message was clear. One of the Vespidians finally broke the silence, his mandibles clicking in reluctant admiration. You humans, you don't just break shields. Lyssa met his gaze, her smile sharp. No, we break rules. The room stayed quiet after that. No more mockery. No more sneers. Just the quiet hum of the Academy systems, and the unspoken understanding that the galaxy had changed. Outside the chamber's viewports, the stars burned cold and distant. But humanity was just getting started.